Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, and welcome to an irrational episode of the Good Leader Podcast. We're down to 3. Jess Treat has taken the day off work. She is being a classic Gen Z, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So she's out there Gen Z-ing it up while we're here holding down the fort. You know, just these home. Millennials and the almost Gen X are here.
Yeah.
I'm on the line.
You're on the line.
I'm on the line. But in this regard, Gen X, totally. Like this moment, show up and get the job done, Gen X.
Yeah,
I'm,
for sure.
I'm much more Gen X on that.
Sure.
I do have a lot of the Gen X, like, just shut up and do it.
Yeah.
Vibe to me.
Yeah.
I can own that.
I'm going to make the coffee even though it's 3 years old. It's been sitting in our cupboard, so I'm going to use it. And
I'm
going
to got a problem with the coffee we're brewing? Got a coffee with the brewing?
Brian and I talk about
it
every day. I said, Brian, the only reason I have not thrown all this out is because I'm actually concerned I might throw out something you want. Mm-hmm. So if you will just throw it out, we'll be fine.
And you are avoiding a solid day of Jared pitching a fit around the office all day. Because you know, whatever day that happens, that I come in and I'm like, wait, we had like 7 bags of coffee in here. Where'd they go? Y'all didn't use them all. Well, I know you didn't use them all.
It's basically like Folgers. I think y'all are safe.
It's literally been there for like 3. I'm like, what's wrong? And then Brian, one day he goes, Anj, it doesn't matter how good I make the coffee. If it's 3 years old.
It is. I agree.
It's not.
It's not
going to be good.
Yeah.
You know? But it's fine. I get my bougie coffee at home.
It's in there, and we're going to use it.
I'm just saying it's very borderline of like dad or Gen X.
It's close
for you.
Yeah, that's true.
A little bit of both,
That's true.
honestly.
A little bit of both on that. That's a total dad
like,
move for me to be like, just use this old coffee and let's use it up.
Yeah.
I will admit, it doesn't taste good. I will admit. There's a dad side, and I don't know if your dads or any dads that you know are like this. There is a dad move to act like it's good. You know what I'm saying?
I can see that.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm not in that dad category. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, this
my
coffee's
dad,
fine.
My dad is.
What? This coffee tastes just fine. What's wrong with the coffee? Take a drink of this. Here, drink this, and you tell me you can tell a difference. You can't tell a difference.
I'm going to call my dad out. He does this, and I think it's very similar, but it's about distances and timing to get somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So like if something, he always rounds to whatever's favorable. So if something takes 37 minutes.
I like this.
Oh, it's only 30 minutes. And then with traffic, it ends up being 45 minutes.
That's good.
Or
I like this.
If I don't know when the distance would be favorable to be further, he'll round in that direction.
Right. That's
I
good.
just think that's hilarious.
If it's like, hey, can we could do this thing? Oh no, it's going to take us 8 hours to get there.
Yeah.
Well, it's more like 6 hours, isn't it? No, we'll be there in time to do the thing
well,
we all want. Well, no, with stops and that, it's going to take us a good 8 hours, 9 hours maybe. I mean, we'll do the best we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love. Okay,
right.
that's pretty good. Hey, you know what? I think we're brewing over here. Get
What?
that brewing?
Yeah, I did. I got
you.
that dad joke.
Love
all
that.
right, thank you. I feel a segment coming on. This is impromptu, but dad moves. Dad moves is a great segment for Lemuel. That guy was born for dad moves.
We might as well just call this
Drop the new
Lemuels.
music for dad moves. That's it's the same music, isn't it? That's a dad move. That's a good dad move. Just playing the same song for us. All right. That's our new segment of the day, Dad Move, sponsored by Old Spice. No, sponsored by Brute. So, do you guys know what Brute is?
I do.
Lemuel, yeah, you know what Brute is.
It's like an aftershave,
It
right?
is. Do you know what Brute is, Anj? Have you seen it?
No,
Green bottle.
My mind just went so many places because there's a new hotel in Tulsa called The Brute. And so I was like,
Oh, really?
How do you know what The Brute is? And how does
I
that
don't.
translate to a dad?
I don't.
I was really racking
Wow.
my brain like, Brute, why do you?
No, I'm not hip and with it to know what the Brute is. Is it downtown?
Yeah, right outside of downtown. Yeah.
No, although I did stay at the Canopy by Hilton in Tempe, Arizona this week. I did not
Nice.
book it. Abigail booked it, obviously. It was
she's booking it now.
It was very fancy.
Good for
Fancy
you,
in
Jared.
a new trendy way.
She's getting you things.
Like it was concrete floors, like in the room.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's
cool.
fine.
Yeah.
I
Little
guess. I was like,
loft
okay.
action.
Yeah, it was good though. I liked it. It wasn't too much for me, but it definitely was. Talking
Different
about dad
than the
moves.
Hampton.
Different than the Hampton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. That's a good comparison.
Probably where you would put yourself.
Yeah. I got nothing wrong with the Hampton though. It's nice. It's clean.
It's too inconsistent for me, but
Okay.
depending on the one you go, it's like I went to the Hampton in Arizona. Wow, it's beautiful. Went to the Hampton in Pennsylvania. 3 lampshades were broken.
Well,
You know?
you know what? I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is Brute is an aftershave. If you don't know what it is, Google it up. It's the dad of all dad aftershaves.
It's also a hotel in downtown Tulsa.
And now it's a hotel in downtown Tulsa. Didn't even know it. We're not talking about any of that today, but I like coming up with a new segment called Dad Moves. And yes, Abigail she is our executive assistant. And I have been reluctant to, I hesitate to say allow, but it's true. I mean, it wasn't like, there was some power struggle. Delegate, ask, invite, encourage, insist. Any of those verbs. I have lacked all of those in asking her to really own my calendar, start booking travel for me, those sorts of things, because my schedule is pretty erratic and I have a lot of weird idiosyncrasies. Like if I can maximize some time at home and leave at midnight on a flight, then I'll do it. Or like, wow, you're going to get up and leave at 6 a.m. instead of going the day before, or 6 a.m. is pretty relatively normal. You're going to leave at 3 a.m. Yes, I will do those sorts of things. So I think there is a good give and take. But it speaks to what we're talking about today, which is the power of our time management. But we're going to take a step further back and talk about the transformational way that we view time. Remember, this is another part in our series, New Year's Transformations. If you're listening to this, you're probably still listening in January. And we're taking this whole month because we can debate over New Year's resolutions. Are they good? Are they bad? Do you have to wait until the new year? All those types of things. What I'm really considering this year is less about the goal setting or the actual resolution and the national quit your New Year's resolution day, which was like, I think January the 9th, by the way. I looked up some stuff and I think it's more like January the 9th.
That feels right.
So like, 80-something% of people are going to quit their New Year's resolutions by January the 9th. So most of us out there probably already failed at some sort of goals. I know I sure have. I've got a couple that I was like, this year I'm going to do this, and I have not stuck with it. But the things that are actually more meaningful to me are these deeper ideas, beliefs, mindsets that I'm using this turn of the calendar to specifically shift.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're going to think that way all the time, but it means that you're going to start thinking differently. And we talked about, with the replacements, more of, less of. And we have talked about, what did we talk about last week? I can't even remember. We talked about language and the power of language. And shifting that mindset and just the words that we use. So today we're going to talk about time. And this was really prompted by two things. I read a book called 10X is greater than 2X, or 10X is easier than 2X last year. And it reminded me of, Ben Hardy is the author, and he wrote it with Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan, I've read some of his work over the last 20 years, actually. He's been around for a long time. His organization is Strategic Coach, and they do coaching for entrepreneurs. So I've heard this idea about time before, but something about it, maybe it's just the idea that you have to hear something so many times before it starts to click, really started clicking for me last year. And we were in Hawaii speaking at an event. I was invited to be the keynote speaker for really the entire conference. I led most of the conference for Native Nations event. It was a high-level leadership event. It was phenomenal. I had a great time. But going to Hawaii, took advantage of the opportunity to take my family. We'd never been to Hawaii, and this was our big Griswold family vacation. A lot of great things happened. My wife got really sick the entire time. All the kids got sick the entire time. She had some sort of flu. COVID kept coming back negative, so I guess she didn't have COVID. But whatever normal flu, like before we knew about COVID, and you would just say someone had the flu, like, well, they got the flu. They've got that's what she had. So that was rough.
Wow.
Also, our entire family, outside of yours truly, gets motion sickness. So airplanes, car rides.
Wow.
It was
like throw up.
It
sickness?
was, yeah. So we went to, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but Haleakala is the national park in Maui. Didn't know that it was an 11,000 feet elevation and a lot of like switchback driving up the mountain. Didn't know that. I did some research, not enough. So yeah, about halfway up, Everett had to stop and puke on the side of the highway. Everybody's telling me, are we there? Can we please stop? Can we please turn around? Are we there? What are we going to do? Can we stop the car? Not this guy, Clark Griswold. Dad move.
Let's do it.
Dad move. I was like, nope, we're almost there. We're almost there. We're close. We're at 7,000 elevation.
Maybe, I wonder if those oxygen containers would work.
Maybe. I might try that, I might also try the, like Valium or something like that next time. Just dope everybody up before we get in the car and go.
Just knock you out.
All that being said, we spent some time on Maui, and then we spent some time on the Big Island. And I love the Big Island, by the way. If you're looking for a recommendation, I highly recommend Hilo, the Big Island side. And I had asked all of the Mer clan, we're going to Hawaii. We'll probably never go again. So what's your bucket list? Give me one item. Everybody gets to pick. And I'm not even guaranteeing that you're going to get it. but I want to hear the requests. Tell me, if you're like, I would love to try to surf. I will try to make that happen. So I got a few requests. Jocelyn's request was she wanted to see sea turtles. Okay, sea turtles, very big deal on the islands. They actually hold like a sacred place, pretty cool. So I was like, okay, we can probably do this. So I'm doing some research, and we go to Hilo, and I was trying to find some sort of semi-wild, not a zoo, but we spotted one in the ocean, but we practically feed the turtles in this lagoon, so come here and see the turtles. That didn't really exist. If it does, I couldn't find it. And I found these snorkel tours, but they were like 3 hours long, and you weren't guaranteed to see. And I was like, okay, this 11-year-old's not going to last on a 3-hour snorkel tour.
And she's going to throw up, probably.
She might throw up, especially if we're, especially it's like $150, dad move. I'm like, come on, I don't know about this. So I talked to the rental-car lady, just quickly said, we want to see sea turtles. She said, well, I hear Richardson Beach is a good spot. So I was like, okay, I'll pocket that information. And one day then, I was trying to find these sea turtles. Couldn't do it. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just go to Richardson Beach. And remember, I want to frame this entire thing with thinking differently about time. Because most of us, and in just a moment, I'm gonna talk about Kairos versus Kronos, and which is from the book and has some deeper thoughts in this transformation of time. But I think for many of the people that are listening to this podcast that would even subscribe to a podcast like this, you're probably, if you're not a clinical high achiever, you're probably trying to do things with your life. You want to be a better leader, grow. And so I think that has a natural tendency to think of time in a very similar way, which is more like Kronos. But on this day, I just said, you know what? Let's just go to Richardson Beach and just see what happens. We're trying to figure it out. It's not really working. But you know what? It's not in the plans. Let's just go check it out. So we go to Richardson Beach. It's really cool. Black sand beach. Have you guys ever been to a black sand beach?
I have not.
Really cool.
Wow.
Really cool. And it's kind of trippy.
Is it hotter to walk on?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it depends on the temperature of the day. So I don't know. It's a legitimate question. I don't know if it holds heat. If it holds heat.
Sand is hot to walk on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Depends on where you are in the world.
Yeah, I guess if you go in the summer and it's hot.
Right. I mean, I've been on the... Anyway, so I don't know if it holds heat more. I will say, though, you pick it up, and it's kind of trippy because it is just sand. So you think it's going to have some sort of a different texture, or like it's going to be rocky or whatever. It's like, nope, that's just sand. It's just black sand. So it's pretty cool. Everett loved that. That was great. But at this Richardson Beach, it was rocks everywhere, like lava rocks. So there was a little bit of sand, mostly rocks. So this was not a pleasant, we're having a great time on the beach. This was like, okay, we're trying to get in to see the turtles. Ow, that hurts. Oh, daddy, pick me up. Oh, gosh. Oh, I cut my foot. Okay. So I'm Clark Griswold out there trying to find these sea turtles. It is really windy. The waves are coming in strong. There are about 50 people, and we're all huddled in this little area because it's too windy and rough to get out in the water. I put on Jocelyn's little goggles, just like normal little cheapo Dollar General goggles, because I kept sticking my head under to try to see the sea turtles. I thought surely there's going to be a snorkel rental place somewhere close by. Nope, I was wrong. Nothing nearby. So I'm holding Everett. I'm sticking my head under, trying to find this stuff. Jocelyn's near me. I'm balancing her. She's like, there are fish. And she starts freaking out because of the fish. I'm like, it's okay. They're little fish. It's cool. It was madness. And I'm not seeing sea turtles. And then we step out. And as I'm trying to get out of the water, I notice this older man and woman. And I mean 80 if they were a day. Very impressive. Full-on snorkel gear, like almost, they weren't wearing bodysuits, but close to it. And I'm like, okay, they are definitely not amateurs. So I get Jocelyn's attention. She's on the beach. I said, ask that couple if they've seen sea turtles. Do I need to keep looking or not? No. So I can see the conversation, and I see promising hand gestures. I'm like, okay, they're pointing. I'm like, okay. So I get out, and Jocelyn says, hey, great news. They said there are no sea turtles here because it's too rough. But if we'll just go around this corner, then we can probably see some sea turtles, like in this little lagoon area where they kind of hide from the rough water. And I'm like, oh, this sounds great. There's so many powerful lessons here. Number one, I want to encourage you, strike up everyday conversation with people. I talked to the rental car lady, and that's how I need to go to Richardson Beach. We struck up a conversation with this older man and woman, and seriously, I was at the giving up point. I was like, I'm done. There are no sea turtles here. Yeah. We tried it. I don't want to exaggerate, but it was probably 50 feet from us We only had to walk 50 feet, but it was around some trees. And we go around these trees 50 feet from where we wanted to give up. And we found 24 sea turtles in the wild, in nature. It was awesome. One of them was humongous. I don't want to exaggerate, but his shell was probably about 6 feet long and about 3.5 feet wide.
Wow.
It was
That's
a
like
mammoth.
this table.
Like this table. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a mammoth. And they're just laying there. It was really cool because you're seeing them and like, wow, they're there. They're just waiting to be seen.
Wow.
And so Jocelyn hit the list. We did what she wanted to do. It was amazing. And it just showed me this was a moment of Kairos versus Kronos in that you can't really plan some of these moments, but we focus so much on the chronological and the chronological of my to-do lists, and this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. I've got to get this done. And I want to talk today then about the way we approach time, because the way you approach time, we have to be incredibly intentional about it. But when I've said that statement in the past, it's been more about like time management. And I want us to be more intentional with our mindsets and the way that we approach time. And for those of you listening, this could be the most impactful change that you can make. Like when I'm thinking about my life and these impactful ideas that I've come across, this one is actually changing my life. There have been a few times over the last 20, 25 years, I'm like, wow, that shift changed my life. One of them, I've said it on the podcast many times, is when I started writing out positive affirmations and getting serious about like vision statements. The last 6 months, I've started getting more serious about shifting time. And so that's what I want to talk about. When we get back from the break, I want to hear your thoughts. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Kronos versus Kairos, and I know you all have done some digging and have some thoughts on it. But I want to share with you Kronos versus Kairos ideology, and then the 3-day time management system. I hate even to say system, but it is a system. But this 3 different types of days that could potentially revolutionize the way you approach time.
If you like what you're hearing today, or you want to see us live in person or in action, you should check us out at ps.company, book a workshop, communication, conflict management, conflict resolution, leadership, executive coaching, and even more. Email us at sales@ps.company.
Whoa, Anj.
That was great.
Off the cuff.
That was off the cuff. That's
Wow.
pretty good.
Yeah.
That's
Not
pretty
even
good.
a
Way
script.
to go.
Man.
No script, no nothing. She's just
I'm
just
worse
ready.
with script. I try to tell Jess, don't use a script. You're going to stumble over your words.
She's just ready. I like that. Yeah, Kairos, ps.company.
I like to believe that I can say what we do, you know? It's
You
a
did
good
a great job.
It's a good
That
litmus
was
test
good.
for me.
That was
Can
good.
I? If
nailed
not,
it.
I don't know if I should be in my role.
That was good. Well, if anybody listening to this likes the show, they would love a workshop. I mean,
We barely get cooking here.
No, we barely start. And
barely.
we go deep. And, we've got an entire Venn diagram. Paradigm shift events are this combination of leadership, fun, and experiential-based learning. So you're not just sitting there listening to somebody. You're really interacting with your peers. It's good stuff.
It is.
It's so deep, it's like camping.
What? What the heck does that mean? It's so
Are you
deep.
talking like deep in the what?
Deep, it's like camping? Tell me you said that wrong. That's not
Definitely
right.
said it wrong.
Okay, all right, good. I was like, wow. I do not know what that means.
Wow. I'm just struggling today.
Well, let's
Wait,
welcome
what is
Lemuel
it
to the pod.
supposed to be?
Yeah, what's the actual? That's so deep.
I can't say it now because it's more embarrassing.
Okay. Well, we're gonna go deep.
No, the word is intense. When you said deep, I
Intense,
thought intense.
like camping.
Yeah, it was very conceptual in my
you
mind.
missed the
wow.
mark. You
Swing and a
really,
miss.
you really, yes. The mighty Casey has struck out. Okay, you know what, Lim? I'm gonna give you a chance to redeem yourself right now with
Love
a little
that.
game we call ping pong. Now we're talking about time management, but really transforming time. But to get us there, we're gonna go in a fun way. This activity is called ping pong. The game is simple. It's gonna ping pong back and forth between these two contestants, Anj and Lemuel. The category are measures of time. So we'll just go until somebody runs out or repeats. So pay attention to what somebody says. All right, measures of time. All right, we'll go ladies first. Anj, what's a measure of time?
Minutes.
Minutes. Perfect.
Seconds,
Millisecond.
Ooh,
hours,
nice.
Weeks.
days,
This is
Months.
good. Nice. This is good. You guys are on fire.
Quarters.
Oh, okay. I'll take that. A quarter. We talk about Q1 all the time. Q2. That's good. I didn't even think that wasn't on my list.
Years.
The years.
Decades.
Nice. Now we're on fire.
Centuries.
Centuries.
Millennium.
Nice. Oh! Can we go bigger?
Milliminutes.
Milliminutes.
Many minutes.
I think that's not a thing. A
It felt-
milliminute?
If a millisecond is a thing, then shouldn't a milliminute be a thing?
Yeah,
You know?
6 seconds. Or,
That could be true.
right?
I don't
Or
know.
a thousandth. A millisecond is a thousandth of a second. Is that right? Or I think, is it a tenth of a second? I don't know.
You
I'd have
lost
to look
me
that
when you
up.
said a sixth. I was like, I guess that's true. I guess it'd be a second.
It would be.
A
Well,
couple seconds.
6 seconds.
Yeah,
I think.
you're
If it's a
right.
tenth.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't-
You could summarize it into
You know what?
millisecond.
I'm gonna give Lim the victory. we'll fact check it
was trying to
before
think
the
of-
next episode. I don't know if I'm milliminute. I like what you're
Oh
doing
man,
there.
I didn't even look at my list.
I was trying to think of
I
the
think
next one.
I think we
couldn't-
said them all.
You said a lot of
I was
things.
going to say a dozen, but
I was
that's
going to
not
say
one.
bi-weekly.
Dozen's not a measurement. Bi-weekly would have been true.
Bi-weekly is technically what I
Bi-weekly,
wrote down.
semi-weekly, semi-annual.
Yeah, I
You
was
could have
gonna
thrown
say
any of
that.
those bi-weeklies or semis in front of there.
Try.
That would
I
have
had
been
it on
good.
my list too.
Quad.
I didn't open it up.
Oh man, orange. All right, you just went
It's
off
all
the
right.
cup. Sometimes
I'll take the loss. I'll
That's
take
all
the
right.
loss.
Lemuel did a good job. The reason I'm asking that is because all of this is to frame. All of those things that you've said are man-made. Just about. There are a few things I've thought about this. Like there are a few things that you could say, like the revolution of the 24-hour days.
Yeah.
You know, the rotation of the Earth gives us a day. All right, so you could say there are 24 hours in a day, but we made up hours. So you know what I'm saying? Like a day is sunrise, sunset, not even sunrise, sunset. But anyway, you get it.
Yeah.
Day and night. Okay? But we made up the hour part. We certainly made up the minute part. And if you do the history, it's interesting. It started coming about in like the 1644. So let's think of even some of the great thinkers like Galileo. If you said, all right, Galileo, give me 10 seconds. He could not do that. He couldn't do that. He could not count in seconds. So what do you mean by that? Well, count to 10 by seconds. Go for it, Lim. Count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And that's a pretty rough estimate of a second, right? We would all do basically the same thing. You know, maybe you're a 1 alligator, 2 alligator. Maybe you're a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, whatever you are. But it's pretty close. We all know when you... Versus if I said, hey, I grew up playing, football in the backyard, and it was like a 3 count or a 5 count to rush the tackler, and it's like, dude, you're cheating, count, you got 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And inevitably, you have that punk kid that's like, 1, 2, 3. Like, dude, that is not right. Why? Because we all know what a second is.
Yeah.
Galileo and anyone before about 1644 would not have known what a second is, because a French mathematician started a pendulum that gave us the second. Okay, now I'm giving us this as this really high level, maybe too out there.
I'm ready.
I know you are. I like
so
that
ready.
about you, Lim.
Camping.
But if all these structures are man-made, think of how much then we dictate our lives around that clock, around this man-made, well, I got to get it done this hour, this day, this, you know what I'm saying? And I know that the time is important in goal setting and talking to each other and being on the same page, but I want to encourage you to think of time differently. And this idea that if all of that is man-made, then how much pressure am I putting on myself to get things done in these amounts of time or in this certain way?
I got a question.
Sure.
So I've thought about this personally because I have found that if I strategically procrastinate, and I don't know
Okay.
if there's a better word for that.
Okay.
But procrastinate almost on purpose.
Yep.
Because personally, I can find momentum when my back's up against the wall.
Okay, yeah.
Does that relate with what you're talking about? Maybe figuring out personal rhythms versus trying to be...
It does. It really does. Well, and even the idea of procrastination is an American or Western ideal. You know what I'm saying? In a lot of Eastern cultures, procrastination is like the favorable. Like our mentality is, well, why would you put it off to tomorrow when you could do it today? You know what I'm saying? Don't slough off. Like get it done. Get ahead even. Well, getting ahead in many Eastern societies is ridiculous. Put it off till tomorrow. Yeah, because I might not have to do it.
Yeah.
If you put it off, it's like, why are you creating this urgency?
Yeah.
And I'll only speak for myself. I know that I've created a lot of urgency in my life, and there have been times when it's been mostly a negative effect. You know what I mean? Like I'm creating this urgency either for a goal or an accomplishment or at work or even just in life. Like I just feel like I should be further or I got to do this thing. And it's like, well, okay. Not only, I want to take it a different step, because often when we do that, we talk about comparison, comparison being the thief of joy and all those things. I want to take it a step further, even like, Time's made up.
Yeah.
Saying like, oh, I should be further at 32 years old, at 42 years old, at 22 years old. Well, even that's made up. Like,
yeah, I remember I can't remember what, this was honestly years ago, but I remember listening to some podcast and off the cuff, the person on the podcast had said something like, and then I'm like 31 and I know I should be like married and I know I should maybe even have a kid. And the podcast interviewer said, who told you that?
Yeah.
Like, where did that come? Who told you that?
Right.
Who said that was true? And she was like, no one, I guess. Like, it was just all based off of a construct of time in the way that you're saying it. But it's like we measure ourselves on the time of like when we are supposed to graduate, when we are supposed to be in college, when we are supposed to get a house. And if you're breaking those norms, then you're breaking some kind of time construct that really probably Western civilization has made. That only translates here.
And not only does it only translate here, but it's incredibly prominent in our lives here.
Yeah.
For when you should do those things or like, okay, we got to get this done this week, this day, this quarter, this whatever. And once again, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I do think there are times that having that shared calendar is helpful. Yes,
right.
If you and I communicate, it's like, I'll get it done when I get it done.
Right.
That's going to be tough for you to cope. I'm really using this, at least in your personal life, especially. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who have more autonomy in your schedules, at work, if you're an entrepreneur, you own your own business or things like that, or if you have a job that has some flexibility in it, this is an area where I want to challenge our thinking, not just our structure. So challenging our thinking, then, Einstein has a great quote about this idea. He says, the distinction between past, present, and the future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. So Einstein, of course, he's talking about big, like, quantum physics and, the theory of relativity of time. We're not going to go that deep. But I like this idea of challenging ourselves. In the book, I was reminded, in the book, 10x is easier than 2x, I was reminded this idea of Kronos versus Kairos. Mm-hmm. And Kairos Kronos and Kairos are kind of the two words for time in Greek. And so especially for those biblical scholars out there, anytime you hear the word Bible, or in the word time in the Bible, it's either Kronos or Kairos. Kairos is seasonal. It's a moment. It's less specifically articulated in any sort of measurement of time that we just diagnosed. It's the Kairos of time, not the Kronos of time. The Kronos is the opposite. That's marked time. That's where we get the word chronological. That's how many seconds did it take? How many days is this going to take? How old are you? Those are all chronological. That's all Kronos time. So to give a biblical reference that will help us understand it, there's a famous biblical passage, I believe it's in Ecclesiastes, that is so famous that you don't even have to be a Christian to, you've probably heard it. There's a time for everything. There's a season for everything. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to mourn, a time to dance. If you're a Footloose fan out there, that's, Kevin Bacon in his jury testimony gave the city council there. There's a time to dance. There's a time to dance. Man, I love Footloose. Do you guys like Footloose? The original. I don't know about the remake. Didn't even watch the remake. The original Footloose was my favorite movie as a kid. Anybody? Nope. Never seen it?
I may or may not have seen it. If I did, I forgot.
Have you seen Footloose, Anj? Mm-mm. You haven't even seen. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you heard?
No. The first thought I had when I heard you say that was, I think my mind actually went to Switchfoot. Like you had me for a second, and then you started hitting the table.
You know what?
Yeah, that's literally what I thought. I was like, yeah, they do talk about time. That's true.
I can be we go Switchfoot also. I can follow you there. Footloose is
But then you were hitting the table and you were like quoting stuff, and I was like, oof.
Because I was really giving a good connection out there between there's a time for everything and this. Anyway, Kevin Bacon
sure Jess
uses
has seen it.
It's a great movie. It's an old movie.
It is
like 1985 or something.
Yeah.
But man, I loved it. Like, oh man, great soundtrack. Do yourself a favor on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to music. Look up Footloose soundtrack. Give it a listen.
Not Switchfoot. Not to be confused with.
If you want to listen to Switchfoot, I'm not gonna quibble. You can do that. 2004 was a really good year for Switchfoot. So, this idea of time, there's a time for everything, and the biblical passage, a time to weep, a time to mourn, a time to dance, all these different times. That's Kairos. It's not Kronos. Mm-hmm. It's not this. Okay, you got 7 days to mourn. You got 3 days. And if you take it, and I give my worldview, this Christian worldview, I really only have two markers of time. I have the day, night and day, and then I have, which, we make up the idea of an hour. 60 minutes is an hour, 60 seconds is in a minute. We've made all that up. And then I only have, like, on the seventh day, rest. So we have a week. ish. You know what I'm saying? We have like, okay, work for 6 days and rest on the seventh. So if we say those are kind of more than man-made, okay, great. Outside of that, it's all up to us. So my point is, don't let Kronos get in the way of Kairos. Don't let Kronos get in the way of Kairos. And living in the moment, and especially for me, this is where and I want to bring this to a point. All this theoretical. Here's my point. I all too often kind of construct my days mentally, and there's a power in that, but I'm not giving myself enough leeway. Like, in other words, if my kids want to play at 5 o'clock and I'm in the middle of something, I can probably do that thing at 9 o'clock.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I can probably maneuver this time, but the Kronos is so dominant in my mind. It's like, I'm sorry, I've just got to get this done.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Stop for a minute and evaluate that. You've got to get that done. Fair. By when? Is it actually tomorrow? Is it actually, well, it's by Saturday, it's by this. You know what I'm saying? But we feel either, like you were saying with procrastination, there may be an element of, well, I don't have to get this done right now. And then there's also the freedom. So then when you start thinking this way, add that into your verbiage and the power of language. I'm really guilty of this. I let other people's Kronos affect my answers.
Yeah.
I had that happen today. Hey, can you get me this agenda? And my answer was like, well, you're asking me for this agenda now. This is the first time I'm getting requested for this. A previous version of Jared would have hustled and got it done. Seriously. Because then also I prided myself on getting things done. It's like, yeah, I can totally do that. I can handle it. I can knock it out. And I want to please the client. I want to get this done. So yeah, I can do that. And instead going, when do you need that? What's the actual Kronos? And then moreover, what is the Kairos? Well, why can't you do that, Jared? Because you're playing with your kids? Because I took Jocelyn and Everett to basketball with me today? Yeah, yep. So this moment, I have them. I can do that at midnight tonight if I need to. And I'm not suggesting that you kill yourself in these different ways. What I'm suggesting is that you start thinking about time differently and ask yourself this powerful question. And this may be the best question. Is this a Kairos decision or a Kronos decision? Even just allowing that sort of ideology into your brain, I hope will give you some freedom to start looking at your time differently and then taking advantage of moments with your closest loved ones and not being pressured by Kronos all the time.
I've heard someone say, the concept of work-life balance obviously is great, but to think of it rather in a work-life rhythm.
Yeah,
I think that speaks to what you're saying.
Yeah, I like that. And I like using the word when we talk about work-life balance. I talk about work-life harmony. So I like the word harmony, which is akin to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So whatever words you're using, I want to give you some more words to add on to that and go, wow, what is the Kairos season that I'm living in? What is the Kairos of this day?
Yeah.
Ansh, what are you thinking about that? I know it's super theoretical. It's more just like out there big, but how does that land
Well,
with
even
you?
in the way you're saying, like, is it a Kronos moment or a Kairos moment? I'm trying to remember that quote that Lindsay loves that you always, not always, but you have quote this, and she would quote it all the time, is like, your emergency does not constitute my like action, or what is it? Do you know what I'm thinking of?
Your lack of planning does not mean it's my emergency.
Is that it?
Something
Might be
to
that.
effect,
It might be that.
I've heard it phrased different ways. I think I often say it like a lack of planning on your part does not create an emergency on my part.
That's exactly what it is. A lack of planning on your part does not create an emergency
On my part.
On my part, or the way you worded it here, like your Kronos moment
yes.
does not need to interfere with the maybe Kairos moment I am having
Yes.
in this moment there too. So that was kind of the first thing I was thinking of as you were
that's good.
talking. Was just like, that it goes back to, it can be as theoretical as you're saying, all the way down to, I think, the accountability of time management that we're really challenging ourselves to have, because both of those things are true. Your lack of planning doesn't constitute my emergency, but also, like, just because you're living in that chronological moment doesn't mean I'm living there with you.
Yeah.
And so, sure, sometimes we have to accommodate, but when we don't, but let that be a time when you actually have to. You don't have to every single time.
Yeah, not every single time.
Reserve the times.
And one of my frustrations that I've heard is you can't plan quality time. And it's like, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can totally plan quality time. You know, I can't create this magical moment. I can't promise that, like, well, hey, when we go to if I take Jocelyn and Everett to the gym with me today, then we're going to have this amazing moment that it's going to be a core memory for them, and they're going to think about it for the rest of their lives. I don't know that I cannot control that. What I can control is like the quality time of, I'm going to take them to the gym with me. And I think those sorts of ideas, that's the Kairos versus the Kronos. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, it's going to be 10 minutes and that's how long it takes to create. That's what I think people are saying when they say you can't you can't create quality time. It's like, well, yeah, I don't know if it's going to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I can do is think more in Kairos versus Kronos and allow Kairos to sometimes trump the Kronos.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that's what I'm getting at. Like, I think that for most of us out there listening to the Good Leader podcast, you probably allow Kronos to dominate your thinking much more than Kairos. Much more. You know what I'm saying? Even we try to fit the Kairos in as far as like, well, I'm going to work, but then this family vacation. So good. It's going to, so I'm going to take family vacation in July. And if we were say, are you putting Kairos in your time? We would say, yeah, I'm insert. But actually what we do is we're just trying to create, or we're trying to pull that into a Kronos mentality. You know what I'm saying? That's where I think ideas like you can't create quality time come from. It's like, oh yeah, here, family vacation. That's my Kairos, like boom, that's my Kairos time. Okay, but you kind of converted that into Kronos. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm encouraging you, and I want to come to you in just a second, Lim, but I'm encouraging people, and part of this is so theoretical that I do have one practical strategy that will help us with it, that will close out with this 3-day system. But some of it is theoretical. Like, this is a mindset. It's not just, you know what, well, if you do it, here's the recipe, here's the formula. It is more of a mindset of going like, wow, okay, maybe I should just think of this more. Lim.
I actually really love how conceptual it is because it has a lot of implications beyond uber practicality.
Yes.
But one thing that I thought of is Joanna really appreciates whenever I acknowledge her throughout my workday. Well, I am very much like, I keep getting them backwards. Kronos, where I am very structured in my day. Like, babe, I will love you when I am done with my work.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think that, like, it makes me think
good.
her in how she wants to be loved is me to, I guess, have this fluidity in my day that I have the wherewithal to be able to either text her or go in the other room and say hello. I work from home most days, but the picture in my mind as you're talking, it's that of I guess, waves. I think of
that's pretty cool.
An organic nature of Kairos, whereas Kronos seems to be how can we create symmetry and everything has its perfect little place in our day.
Like a staircase almost.
Yeah, the word rhythm just keeps coming to mind. And I
Kronos
picture a
is
wave.
definitely more rigid. Kronos has definitely
Yeah.
a more rigid connotation. You know, this is going to be 3 hours and 2 hours and 5 minutes or whatever, all these. But it's interesting because if you start, I guess the first step for me has been, and I've only been really adopting this. I've heard the word Kairos and Kronos for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
But really it's just the last 6 months I'm trying to adopt this more into my life. And I will say it's more just thinking of like every season is some sort of Kairos. So like you're talking about the season that you're in, the Kairos that you're in is, this is, how long have you been married?
10 years.
10 years.
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10. So, and you've got, you've got a young child. And so this season is going to be a part of your life. And the next season, before kids is kind of another Kairos. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody who's been married with kids, without kids, 2 different Kairos. 2 different Kairos.
Yeah.
And so even I think part of this adopting this is hopefully will help us like slow time down even. You know what I'm saying? Like, or to maximize time, because it's like, so then when you're saying like, oh yeah, babe, I'll be done at 4:00, that's when I can love you.
There seems to be an implication in the concept of Kairos that says you need to be able to discern the moment that you're in and be able to ebb and flow with that appropriately.
Well, and if you want to be like super biblical about it, if I go to that reference and think about, well, then what are the implications if there's a time for every season? Like, oh, wow, this is the Kairos time. Like, this is the only time that you and your wife will be in this season of love. You'll love her forever, but this Kairos is it. And so when you think about that, like, yeah, this is fleeting. This is not going to last. If we go to our kids, especially, like, my goodness, your boys are only going to be little for not very much longer.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like Jordan Peterson says kids are only little for 4 years. He puts the market like, and that's pretty close. Some kids hold on a little bit longer. When you think of like a little kid, like, they're little bitty.
Yeah.
It's really 4 to 5.
Yeah.
Once they get into kindergarten, once they start school, then it's like, oh, wow, you're kind of growing up on me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, wow, you are not little anymore. You're still a child. But those seasons are so fleeting. So I just want to encourage people today on this transformation, especially if you feel, we talk a lot about burnout. We talk a lot about those kind of ideas. I think that some of this is connected somehow. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that it's everything. It's certainly not everything. But I think this idea of just reshaping and allowing, I guess that's as I was preparing this, I just kept thinking of giving people permission and allowing yourself to remove yourself from the Kronos, allowing yourself to be like, no, I've got to, whether it's pressure societally, like you were talking about in the podcast on, like, well, I should be married. I should be more successful. I should have more money. I should have kids. I should do this. I should. Or the internal pressures of people pleasing around us, or just getting things done in a certain amount of time that we think we should, and stepping back and enjoying the Kairos. To close on some practicality, to try to put some practicality to this, because you're right, Lemuel, this isn't something that I had. This is the 1, 2, 3 step to understanding Kairos. These are big words that you have to grapple with. But for me, I certainly don't want to look back over my life and have more Kronos than Kairos, if we were to put it that way. So putting practicality to it can be difficult, but the system that Dan Sullivan introduces, it's a 3-day system, and we'll close out with this. I'm just trying it this year. I'll keep you posted throughout the year on how it goes for me. But it's 3 days. It's focus days, free days, and buffer days. Now, those are the terms he used. You can use any term you want. He actually got this when he was young. In his early 20s, he wanted to be an actor. And he started thinking about how actors or these performers think about time. He's like, wow, they think about time totally differently. And this may be the most practical application to consider. And by performer, think of an actor, think of a musician, think of a professional athlete. They don't think about time the way that you and I think about time in regards to work. They're not really punching a clock. I think of especially, I love sports, so I think of athletes. And I think of like how LeBron James thinks in terms of time. So the performance days or the focus days, that's when they have a show or a game or something, like this is a performance day. And so on those days, they have a certain rhythm. I like what you said, Lemmy, that rhythm of here's my day. It's not like they might have some times. There's certainly a tip time, but it's more rhythmic of, I got to get my warm up in, got to get my nap in, got to get this done. But it's less about like exact timing and more of the rhythm and flow of what a performance day looks like, what a focus day looks like. The free days in the performance terminology are restoration days or recovery days. It's like you had a big game tonight, double overtime. The next day is a recovery day. You get to, am I the only one hearing that horn? If you're hearing that horn, that's new to us.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to call it out.
What that is.
I don't know what's going on outside. We'll check. We'll let you know on the next podcast if we all survive. Something's going on outside. A lot of horns, a lot of craziness.
Somebody's mad honking.
But free days are the recovery days. And then the buffer days are those days where you've just got to, it's all the minutia. If you follow the Eisenhower idea of like urgent, the quadrants, 4 quadrants of time management, it's like not important, but urgent. It's like you have to get this done, do this thing, return this email, all those things that it's like, wow, this is not my performance day. It's paying the bills and getting this done. Those are buffer days. He encourages, by he, I mean Dan Sullivan encourages that to try to put in 150. Now, he's talking to entrepreneurs. He's talking to people that have more freedom in their schedule. But he encourages 150 free days a year. And he says, do the free days first. And I first thought that. I was like, man, that's a lot. Most people listening to this podcast probably don't have that kind of time off or flexibility. But if you just give yourself the weekends and don't worry, like truly like free days, recovery days, rest days.
1 day a week.
That's 104. Well, if you give yourself the weekend, that's 52 times 2. So you're at 104 right there. So I was like, oh, okay, well, 150 then isn't as outlandish as I thought. So let's land somewhere between 104 and 150 for you out there. And this is the Kairos versus Kronos. I encourage you to start challenging yourself to give yourself the free days first and then the focus days next, and then fill in the buffers. I'm shooting for 52 buffers. I'm shooting for 1 day a week. That's a buffer day. That is getting the minutia done, responding to other people, meetings that need to happen but aren't really, I think of it if we use it's like LeBron James needs to meet someone about his Space Jam movie, but he's not playing basketball. Say it's not his focus. It's not how that's not his prime thing. So it's the same thing for you. So as we close this out and we talk about time, I know that today it's been a really lofty idea. But if you want to really start to transform, and maybe this is part of the reason even people fail at the resolution so quickly, because we're so focused on the Kronos, it's like, well, I gave it a week and a half and I failed twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you zoom out and go the Kairos and think of it like, hey, this is a season that I'm going to get healthier. And I'm not worried as much about the time. Yes, maybe I'll set a goal, but I'm also just in this season, I want to be healthier. I want this to be a healthier season of my life. I want the Kairos to be, I want to have more energy in this time of my life. and maybe put a little more Kairos into things and not look so much at a pass, fail, right, wrong, Kronos, chronological, this dichotomous way that we look at so many things. Maybe we'd bring some more success into our life and moreover fulfillment. All right, so let's close this out with a last call. Final thoughts on this. Is it good? Is it bad? Are you processing it? What's your immediate takeaway?
My first thought is you're like, especially talking about the free, focus, and buffer day. Because not everybody, even as flexible as my schedule is, I don't have the flexibility to do all of that.
Yep.
But what I have really had to hone in on, even the last 6 months, is this like back-to-back scheduling pressure that we put on ourselves.
Yeah,
where
that's
it's like
good.
I'm constantly, people always need something from me. So, I can squeeze you in between these meetings and you in between these meetings and you. So I'm just hearing a lot of the word like space. Like you can't really have a Kairos moment if there is no space.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you need to schedule those moments.
Yep.
But if I have literally no space to allow anything different to happen from the time of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., then you're living in that Kairos. But, and I know some of it, like I said, there's some days, the focus days, like what you're saying, we do have to live there and we do, or maybe buffer days, we do live in some of that. But I think to put some of those tools into my life, I've been trying to get a lot better at not doing this like back to back. I used to just want to do back to back scheduling, knock it all out and be done.
Yep.
But then it's crazy because once you let yourself do that one day, suddenly you're doing it every day.
Every day.
Really.
That's what I found. I
Every
found
day.
the same thing happen. It's like, wow, now I'm just in meetings every
Just
moment of every day.
all day.
How did that happen?
Yeah. And so, and if I'm actually challenging myself to put space in my calendar, I then obviously can't have as many meetings. So then I'm having to ask myself, like, well, what do I not need to be in order to create some of that space? So then it just improves room for delegation as well, or authority, or like other people to take the meetings that you really don't need to be in. So I know everyone listening is obviously in different journeys to that, but I would say I think there's spaces where you can tweak little parts of your day that to experience more of those free flowing moments, even if you can't do full days, full free days. You work on weekends, but really evaluate your week. Well, what days are more free? What days are more flow? We work from home Monday and Friday, so I intentionally schedule no meetings pretty much ever on Fridays because I try to have that be more of like my development or ideation or I guess free day in that sense, right? But I have the ability to do that. Not everybody does. But I just think space.
Well, and sorry, Lim, I want to come to you next, but I don't want to lose this thought. We've been using Kairos. I used it like this almost subconsciously and didn't mean to. We've kind of used this Kairos Kronos for like a work-life balance almost, like Kairos is the home, enjoy, free. But that's not necessarily true. And so I'm even challenged by what you're saying is because so I just wrote this phrase down, the Kairos of business. And sometimes I think the Kairos of business is even overrun by the Kronos of business. Like you're saying, like, oh, I got these back-to-back meetings. Yeah, but the season can be a season of productivity, a season of delegation, a season of max. You know what I'm saying? And like, oh, wow. But we're so focused on the Kronos sometimes of like scheduling the meeting, doing this thing and feeling like that's productive. It's like, well, if you maybe put a little more space in there or allow for a little more seasonality, greater things could even come from that.
Yeah, like the amount of times I've had to rush through what actually probably could have been a much deeper conversation with an employee because I've got 3 people waiting in my office. But really, I did that to myself because I have no buffer space in the time to even have that casual conversation with the employee. So now, honestly, all they're ever getting from me is just back-to-back productivity conversation or meeting conversation. And then there's no other, like you said, the Kairos or even relationship, just something unwork related to that meeting space. But I can't find that without leaving space for it in my calendar.
That's good stuff. I really like that. That's worth exploring even more. Lim.
This has actually been my favorite podcast we've done in a long time. I like it a lot because
we're here for you, Lim. I'm glad.
I mean,
I'm happy to
thought I'd
serve.
give my thoughts. This has been like camping,
good.
you know? It's so deep. No, but I like it. I like the concept because I feel a sense of freedom because I do feel the pressure to be productive. And I think it takes into the idea of Kairos.
Yep.
Takes into account, I think it's more of a whole person approach, that we are people who need more than just to be productive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you're making all the ORU grads happy. So ladies and gentlemen, everyone listening to this podcast, I know we're out there. We're doing the best we can. We're hustling. We're moving. We're doing all these things. And once again, I don't want to act like this is easy. I don't want to act like it's simple. I also don't want to act like it's just this nonchalant. Like, give some space in your time. Relax. That is not my MO.
I have to be intentional. Yeah.
But I do think that if we want to live a holistic, happy, healthy life, that is good leadership. And to do so, maybe we should think about time differently. So I encourage you. Hopefully you love this. Hopefully you are thinking about time differently, and hopefully it helps you. So go out there and be a good leader.